Hello everyone, Loremaster of Sotek, and today is another very exciting day. Technically, yesterday was a very exciting day, but I was busy with Sadie being a little bit of a, puppies, they can be a bit of a terror. I don't know what possessed her, but let's just say there is a second story window screen that I need to take off and replace because it has been annihilated. But in any event, I hope you're all having a wonderful week and are looking forward to the weekend, but there is something very exciting I'm really looking forward to diving into. So let's not waste any more time and get into this. So, okay. Cubicle 7 is the company behind the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th Edition series, which is amazing. If you have not gotten into it, I don't know how I can convey to you how much I love this series. I probably need to make some just genuine standalone videos talking about the actual game itself to help introduce people better to it instead of it just kind of being random rambles. But the most exciting book in the history of anything, as far as I'm concerned, is about to come out, which is that the Lustria supplement for Cubicle 7's 4th edition game is about to come out. And I've talked about it a few times here on the channel. The last update they put out was extremely exciting because we got confirmation that Luther Harkin, a Grand Commodore, or Grand Arch Commodore, I don't remember, he has a ridiculous amount of titles. He's not Cetra level, but he's close. But the Vampire King, the Pirate King himself, is going to be in the book with rules, and that's super exciting because it also means we're going to get a lot of really awesome details. But they've put out another blog giving us even more details and some new artwork. And so we're going to go over that. And I'm really interested to see what they have in store, because so far they've kind of already revealed everything I wanted, which is that we're getting the Pirate Coast. We're getting a lot of different aspects of Lustria. We're getting a full functioning temple city. And we're also getting quite a few temple ruins. So without further ado, let's jump into today's article, or yesterday's article, but I'm seeing it today for the first time, which is the Perils of Lustria. And we can see this new artwork, which has these terrifying looking skinks. Like, these skinks are so awful looking, like in a good way. Like, they're awful as in horrifying. And this man is about to be hurled into the snake pit, which is something that we do here in this community, especially over on Twitch. We love throwing people in the snake pit. They come out different, but in a good kind of different. Anyway, so it says, when the adventurer Pizarro returned from Lustria, he and his men told a tale that has had the regrettable consequence of convincing many that a journey to the mysterious continent is likely to involve cooperation with the lizardmen, who make their homes there, payment in a fortune of gold, and easy living in a tropical paradise. For other visitors, this idyllic conception is about as far from the truth as one could imagine. So that is actually very, very exciting news, because Pizarro is a very particular character. He's kind of one of those weirdos that is vaguely, very heavily based on a real life historical figure that is very heavily mythologized, and so they appear in Warhammer Fantasy. I can't remember if he's from Estalia or Telea. I want to say he's from Estalia, but a lot of the times characters that you think are from one end up being from the other. But in any event, his story is very weird because it's based on very, very old lizardman lore. And one of the things that Cubicle 7 has been doing, which is the main reason I love them so much, is that they've been taking as much of the old lore from Warhammer Fantasy as they can and bringing it up into the modern setting to have it make sense, so that we have a far more grandiose and well-defined world that also allows people from every edition to find their favorite stories, but not just leaving them the way they were, updating them so that they make sense in the modern setting. So Pizarro's Lost Legion, which is a very famous Dogs of War unit, and Pizarro is, the big guy there. Pizarro went to Lustria, and he kind of got lost and wandered around and stuff, and eventually he ran into the lizardmen. But his story was very unique because some skinks came to him and basically offered a deal. So the skinks basically hired them on as dogs of war. They hired them as mercenaries. And so the skinks would come to Pizarro and say, hey, we need you to do this thing for us, and we'll let you, we'll give you food, we'll give you water, and we'll give you gold. Because to the lizardmen, gold is meaningless, right? To the lizardmen, this was like a stupid easy deal because they don't care about gold. It's a meaningless metal to them because they have so much of it. The only reason the lizardmen even use gold is because it's so resistant to weathering, particularly that it doesn't rust. So because of its longevity, when used on like sacred plaques and stuff like that, there they like to use gold and on a lot of their weapons and stuff, but it's only because they have so much of it. But to the lizardmen, it doesn't have any inherent value like it does to humans. So to the lizardmen, like all they had to do was give these humans like a whole bunch of food and water and this worthless metal that they have, and these humans were willing to do a pretty crazy amount of stuff for them. So Pizarro ended up living in Lustria with his mercenary company for a while, doing various odd jobs for the lizardmen and helping them out in some battles. And eventually Pizarro kind of wanted, they wanted to leave. They wanted to take all of their treasure and come back to the old world. So there's kind of a whole storyline about how he kind of finagles his way out of his deal with the lizardmen. But he does successfully leave Lustria with tons and tons of gold and spices and all these crazy exotic goods, and he makes his way back to the old world where he becomes insanely wealthy, and tales are spread about him to all corners of the old world, so a lot of people start going. But obviously the lizardmen are not that friendly to the vast majority of interlopers. The only reason they even tolerated Pizarro is, granted, this was older lore and the lizardmen were much more amicable to diplomacy, but generally speaking, it's because there's like some sort of celestial alignment, or the coming of Pizarro was predicted by the old ones in one of the sacred plaques, or one of the various prophecies that the lizardmen have. So like they knew he was going to be there, so when he showed up, they're like, yes, this is part of the great plan, so we'll work with this guy. We'll work with this warm blood. All right, so this art is called The Right to Sotek. Delicious. All right, before a visitor so much as sets foot on Lustria soil, they are beset by maladies and madness. A great warding spell lies over the continent, designed to send explorers awry should they seek to find Lustria. Whilst this great work of ritual magic has weakened over the millennia since it was first worked, it still disorients those new to the land. Oh, that's super interesting lore. That's a fun way to explain why Lustria has been so unexplored for all these years, is that there's literally a ritual spell. Wow, that's actually super scary. So Ulthuan has mist and shifting islands, only, granted it's only on the eastern side of Ulthuan, but that keeps people from approaching from the east. And that alone is terrifying because the mist also has like strange mist demons in it. But the lizardmen full on have a madness inducing ritual. It is still the first of many distempers that can afflict a warm-blooded visitor to Lustria. Those who fail to keep their boots clean may find their feet eaten away by caustic loam, and the horrors that await those who become prey to parasites such as blindworm fits, brain fluke infestation, or fungal takeover are too grotesque to contemplate. I really hope we get rules for that in there and get to learn a lot about it. Lustria is also home to a bewildering array of poisons, venomous, carnivorous, and gigantic species, from the humble patch of impaling spikethorn to the noxious blowtoad to the voracious borer snake and the insatiable dreadsaurian. Oh, could you imagine if they give us dreadsaurian rules? Oh man, that would be an adventure. Playing an adventure of like characters in Lustria, and like your end goal is to hunt down and somehow deal with a dreadsaurian would be amazing. Those brave souls who have sought to measure and describe the species of Lustria for the benefit of scholars of Bysteria have paid a high price in lives for such researches. The lizardmen are no less dangerous, for whilst they may be reasoned with in given circumstances, they abide by the great plan according to the meditations of their slawn masters, and as such they only seek to aid or comfort the warm-blooded races when such goodwill suits their own enigmatic agendas. Oh my god, look at this! Oh, look how good this Coatl art is! Plotlo the Enigma. Oh, he's a patron or nemesis? Fuck me. Oh my god, that's so exciting. Also, Sam Manley, I follow him on Twitter. He does amazing art. This is so good. Oh, it's not a Total War Coatl. It's an actual Coatl. Thank you. Thank you, Cubicle 7, for putting that god-awful Creative Assembly Coatl in the dirt where it belongs, dead, never to be seen again, except for when I play without my mod. Look how beautiful this is. Look at the helmet. Dude, he's a patron. Oh, that's so fucking... Okay, so... oh my god, that's so cool. So... Whew, okay, so there are two systems in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition called the Patron system and the Nemesis system. So patrons and nemesis they're two sides of the same coin. So basically what it is that in certain supplements, certain books, there are characters, generally very, very powerful characters. Now, how their power is determined depends on various aspects. So it might be that their power is based on how influential they are, or it might just be how genuinely terrifying, scary they are. And what the Nemesis system is it's usually you have 1 to 2 full pages, sometimes more, dedicated to a character, and it explains who that character is, what their powers are, what their motivations are, and it gives you like a ton of insight into them. And the reason for that is they are meant to act as really important members of your campaigns, especially if you're doing homebrew campaigns. So a patron is a character that you use to basically give your party quests or missions or goals. And so it might be that like a good example, I can't remember any of the patrons very easily off the top of my head because I haven't used any yet in my campaign. I'm using a Nemesis in my campaign, but I haven't used a patron yet. But patrons tend to be characters that your party... Oh, Balthazar Gelt. There we go. Balthazar Gelt's a perfect example. Balthazar Gelt is a very heavily... he's a suggested patron from the Altdorf supplement. So Balthazar Gelt being the Supreme Patriarch... though he's not Supreme Patriarch yet, actually, in the modern... in the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, the timeline is actually moving with each book that comes out. They cover a certain period of years. So Gelt is going to become Patriarch, Supreme Patriarch soon, but right now he is only Patriarch of the College of Metal. But you can have him as a patron. So basically the book gives GMs or game masters a lot of rules and ideas for how to have Balthazar Gelt interact with the party. So for instance, how they would meet him or how he would hear about them and summon them to his quarters, or how he would want to meet them, and basically what his goals and motivations would be, and what kind of missions he would send them out on, how he would treat them, how he would reward them. So basically, it allows you to design your campaign where it can revolve very heavily around that character. So you could easily design a campaign where, like, if you want, you can make a campaign where all of your characters are, initiates at the College of Magic, or they're mercenaries, or they're just random folks who get hired by Gelt to go off and do various tasks, where he does the whole, gentlemen, welcome to Astalia speech, welcome to Astalia, gentlemen speech, where, he knows he's sending them on a task that could very easily result in their death. But, if they die, whatever. And if they succeed, they bring him something useful or useful research. But in exchange, that means they have a very powerful patron. So they can use their relationship with Gelt to further their own agendas. So like if you're playing the Enemy Within campaign, which I would highly recommend for anybody, especially if you have, like, whether you have prior experience with roleplay games or not, it's super easy to get into. I'm running a campaign right now. Hopefully we'll have our next session next week. But you can easily insert these patron characters, and they might give your characters various little tasks that are good, like little side quests to help them get some additional experience, maybe some magic items or money. You always need money. And they also, if you're playing the Enemy Within and you're dealing with things going on in Altdorf with all these cults and nasty things happening, having an ally like Gelt could be very, very useful if your characters got arrested for some reason, whether they deserve to be arrested or not. If Gelt had useful pawns, he would be far more interested in personally intervening on their behalf. And a nemesis is the villainous version of that. So nemeses are bad guys who can develop a relationship with your characters, and grant, you don't have to use them this way, but the way the book recommends using them is basically they're your Saturday morning cartoon big bad. They are the character that maybe your party meets very early in the campaign, or like early to mid campaign, once they're past like the intro. And once they've met that character who is like far more powerful than them, they end up meeting them over and over and over and over again. You know, it's the main antagonist. It is a character who is constantly has schemes or plans that are being thwarted by the party, or at least attempted to be thwarted by the party. And there are many different types of nemesis. So some characters that they have that have appeared as potential nemesis. I think nemesis is the right word. You have Wulfric the Wanderer. Actually, before he becomes the Wanderer, it's just Wulfric because he hasn't been cursed yet. Throg the Troll King is another example. One of my personal favorites is the Famir matriarch character Muna Mim. So Muna Mim is introduced as a nemesis, and they give you like her psychology and how she works. And I've done a video on her. I'll link it. I'll have it like come up when I'm talking about this, or I'll have it linked down below, so you can check out and get more details on that. But it gives you like, what is her big goal? What is her motivation? So like for Muna Mim, her whole thing is that she's very lonely. She's been alone for like hundreds, if not thousands of years. I think it's hundreds. She's been alone for centuries, and she's so lonely and bitter that she cares far more about engaging with others than she does about necessarily succeeding in her plan or killing people. Like if she encounters your party, she's much more likely to try and capture them so that she can like berate them and yell at them. Then she probably wouldn't kill them. Like the only reason she would kill them is if it was a do or die situation, or if they really forced her hand. She would be far more likely to be more interested in defeating them or humiliating them, or just lashing out at them in anger. But she wouldn't really go out of her way to kill them because that's not really her aim or goal. Whereas if you use a nemesis like Wulfric, you know, Wulfric is far more interested in being the ultimate warrior. You know, he's building up to his war against King Torgold. So he would be far more interested in encountering a party that could help him find worthy challengers, maybe help him track down a fabled beast, or maybe they're captured by Norskins and he takes them on as skulls or slaves, but he's willing to let them go in exchange for some service. Whereas, you know, Throg the Troll King, Throg is a very intelligent character. But he's not lonely in the sense that Muna is, in that she's desperate to rail against someone. Throg is far more interested in civilized conversation. He's far more interested in news on what's going on in the realms of men, so he can make his own plans. And if you can keep him entertained and make him where he's not bored, he might even let you go. Or if you prove to be too boring, he'd eat you. You know, so you have these characters that you constantly interact with. Some are more like Machiavellian schemers. So you can have like Egrim von Horseman as a nemesis if you pick up the Winds of Magic supplement. Egrim von Horseman being like the ultimate Tzeentch warrior of chaos when it comes to controlling cults. Like he is the big bad of every single Tzeentch cult, pretty much. They almost all of them tie directly back to him in some way. So there are two sides of the same coin, in that there are characters who are very powerful in different ways, who can motivate or kind of guide your characters through a storyline or a campaign, and they could be friend or foe. You know, there are storylines given for, if you have Egrim von Horseman as kind of a major character in the storyline, he could be a patron. You know, whether your party is a bunch of whether they're, you know, not necessarily good guys, they're more interested in their bottom line and surviving. You know, maybe they don't really care about you know, good versus evil. They're just like, hey man, I just got to get food on the table. You know, Egrim von Horseman could be a very powerful patron, you know, as long as he doesn't ask them to do anything too crazy. Or it could be that he's working through agents, so they don't know they're working for Egrim von Horseman. So you could have a party of do-gooders who are being manipulated by this terrifying, you know, cult of Tzeentch, and they don't realize it until later in the campaign. So then he flips from being a patron to a nemesis, which is very cool. But here we have Plotlo the Enigma, which is so fucking badass that he is a patron or nemesis. That means he's going to be built in with systems of, this is a creature that you could work with. You could have a party of players who encounter this majestic, millennia old, feathered serpentine creature, you know, kind of like a very terrifying, intelligent dragon who possesses incredible magic over the jungle, who is willing to work with them and will reward them in exchange for probably helping defend the jungle from various threats, probably aiding with things like the Vampire Coast or Clan Pestilence, or like Norskin invaders, you know, chaos worshippers. Or he could be a very big nemesis. If your characters are people who care, they're like the Marcus Wolfharts of the world. They're here to civilize Lustria. They're here to beat back the savage and to bring culture and construction. They're colonizers. Well, then this guy would probably be a very big nemesis for you. He's constantly going to be trying to thwart you building new buildings or bringing in caravans or saving lost patrols and stuff like that. So this is super fucking exciting. I love the character design. God, I wish we had this in Total War. Like, it's so close to what we have in Total War. It's the same color scheme. They have the same wings. They both have split tails. It's just the head design, and Plotlo is like a billion times more badass than the CA one. He doesn't have a stupid bird beak. He's got those giant serpent fangs, and he's got like a super badass helmet. Like, god damn, that is a mwah right there. Anyway, let's continue on. With all the might and magic available to the lizardmen and their allied species, there is little safety to be found in their territories. Yet the colonies of humans and elves on the coast of Lustria amount to a few scattered and rare settlements with problems of their own. Oh, so this is what Skeggy looks like? Yo, that's so awesome! Looking at it, you can kind of understand why the lizardmen have struggled a bit to get rid of it. Granted, Skeggy has like a really fascinating history for how it has managed to survive that is mostly due to the people of Skeggy not being idiots. They tend to discourage like flat out going after the lizardmen. And when people arrive in the city with like treasure, if the lizardmen army show up, the people of Skeggy are like, throw everything into the water, like throw everything out of the buildings, throw it in the water. And the lizardmen will usually come out and get, whatever it was that they wanted, and they'll leave the rest. Because, the lizardmen, they rarely tend to resort to violence as a first measure unless they believe it's just absolutely necessary. If they come to you because you've stolen something from them and you just throw it on the ground and run, the vast majority of the time, they're not going to pursue you because to them, there's really no point. They'll just be like, oh, good, and take what's theirs and leave. So Skeggy, through being able to defend itself, and here we can see it has a very interesting design. Obviously, floating on the water won't protect them alone because Kroxigors and Skinks exist, and they are aquatic and terrifying. And also the Slon could still flatten them easily. But they've managed to survive through shenanigans. So we see Skeggy. The few human settlements that exist on the shores of the isthmus to the north of the continent are continually beset by extreme weather, dangerous animals and plants, and the hostility of the nearby temple city of Coatl. Dude, I really hope Mazdamundi makes some kind of appearance. Like, I don't need him because I feel like I know we're probably gonna get one Slon, at least, but getting to see Mazdamundi or at least hear him talked about because he destroyed the city of El Cadavo. El Cadavo was obliterated by Mazdamundi. He ordered it destroyed 2 times, and then on the 3rd time, that's the very first time that Lord Mazdamundi got on Zlak, his Stegodon. Mazdamundi had never ridden a Stegodon before then, but he got so irritated by the people of El Cadavo constantly encroaching on Hexwaddle's territory and they woke him up 3 times within a century, which to a Slon, that's basically the equivalent of like going to sleep and like someone, like some small annoying creature, vaguely like a child, I guess you could say, walks in and like slaps you in the face and runs away giggling, but does it 3 times within like 5 minutes. And Mazdamundi on the 3rd time, like got the shotgun. Like he was done. He was ready to go back to sleep. So, anyway, which historically in Warhammer Fantasy, that's a huge event because it represented Mazdamundi finally waking up. That was the time where he finally roused himself fully awake and shook off I forget what the word is. Annoy, I think is the word that Chaos kind of cursed the Slon with during the Great Cataclysm, where Tzeentch managed to curse the Slon to make them far more like kind of exhausted, and their minds were constantly cloudy and foggy, and they had a really hard time like fully awakening, so they wouldn't be as active. And Mazdamundi, thanks to El Cadavo, like got so pissed that he fully woke up. And that's when he had Zlak turned into his mount to carry him into battle, and he also set about just terrorizing anyone that fought against the Great Plan. Anyway, Swamp Town and Port Reaver are young Old Worlder towns, almost certain to meet the same doom as Dalmark Town, Brion, or El Cadavo, whose ruins stand on the same stretch of a coast. Brion! Okay, I'm really excited to see Brion is mentioned. So Brion made its reappearance in Total War Warhammer 3. I guess at the end of 2, but anyway, so no, I think it isn't. Anyway, or started in 3, I can't remember. But in Total War Warhammer 3, at least, if you play Albrecht de Bordelot, he starts in Lustria now. It's a Lustria campaign. And he starts in a town called Brion, which is in Lustria, and it is a Bretonnian village, a Bretonnian colony. And I actually didn't know about it because it isn't shown on any of the more updated maps. Brion was kind of a White Dwarf supplement focus from a ways back and wasn't really ever talked about afterwards. Because it was probably destroyed. So see, this is the kind of shit I'm talking about, where like the writers at Cubicle 7 are like, oh, Brion, cool storyline. Like, okay, I doubt they really care what's going on with Total War. But probably like, oh, okay, like it's relevant enough here. They know about Brion, so let's write in what happened to it. Why is Brion no longer still with us? What? And I can't remember if the original story has it destroyed or not. I think the original White Dwarf story has Brion still around, but I'm really excited to learn why or how it was destroyed. And then it says, only Skeggi, established by the famed Bjornling explorer Lost Eriksson in 888 IC, can claim to be a permanent human habitation, with a proven history of surviving the worst that Lustria can throw at it. Yet it is a dreadful place on its own right, lawless, anarchic, and ruled by several rival Norse factions whose devotion to chaos is as open as it is in the frozen lands of Norska. Yet so valuable is the trade that can be done in this forsaken place that the lords and captains of the old world, who would defy chaos to their last breath in their own countries, are willing to overlook the madness and mutation of Skeggi whilst they load and offload their cargoes, which is very exciting. So we're going to see some chaos shenanigans, and more Norse characters are always very welcome. We got a lot of really, really awesome Norse rules in the Sea of Claws supplement, which is the most recent big book that built up to Lustria. So the Sea of Claws gave us rules for the ocean, sea monsters, a lot of rules for Norskins. It also gave us new lore on Norskin dwarfs, which was very exciting, and basically modernized the Norskin dwarfs. So now we actually have a much better understanding what's going on with them, and finally got rid of all of the conflicts in their lore. Granted, I still need Cubicle 7 to release a supplement on like dwarfs, like just focused on the Karazankor. We have not gotten anything really about the World's Edge Mountain dwarfs, which is fine, but it means there's actually a number of conflicts in the lore between the new Cubicle 7 lore and the old dwarf lore, because the old dwarf lore is almost purely focused on the Karazankor and the World's Edge Mountains, which are like the main holds, whereas the new lore, we have quite a bit of lore on the Grey Mountain holds and the Grey Mountain holds, human-based dwarfs, so the dwarfs that live in human cities, and now the Norskin dwarfs. But we even actually have little bits and pieces about the dwarfs that used to live in the Middle Mountains near Middenheim, though they did not go as far in with that supplement as I would have liked, because they didn't like give us any clan names. They just kind of gave us their history, but not a single mention of the clans that used to live there, which is a shame, because I would have loved to have some names. But in any event, that's neither here nor there. But I'm getting off topic. Oh, Lord Skrolk! Skrolk the Unclean. Look how good he looks, man. You imagine, like, the Liver Bubonicus looks so impossible to read. Like, what is actual script and what is just like random nasty garbage that got on there? So here we can see Lord Skrolk. He's got the Liver Bubonicus. He's got his Rod of Corruption, and he looks absolutely delightful. I love all the like pus and mucus coming out of his eyes. Yeah, he looks horribly disgusting. Skrolk the Unclean. And Skeggi is not the only profane site on the mysterious continent. Lustria saw the birth of one of the most ruinous and pestilential threats the old world has ever seen. For long ago, a force of Skaven, far afield from their nascent under-empire, suffered greatly in the plague-ridden jungles and swamps of the Lustrian interior. To survive, the lords of the forlorn Skaven expedition beseeched a terrible deity for new reserves of resilience, giving rise to the mephitic might and moldering majesty of Clan Pestilence. Many times the Lizardmen have endured horror and hardship to free Lustria from the influence of this menace, but the Ratmen keep on creeping back. So Lord Skrolk is in the book, which is so awesome. I am very excited to see his profile. They've been building up to Lord Skrolk. I actually think I talked about this in a prior video, but they released a small supplement. So it's not you can't buy it as a physical book. It's a PDF only. But it's called it's called like the Warband of, I think it's the Warband of Many Eyes or something. But it's a Nurgle Chaos Warband that gives you rules for Nurgle Chaos worshippers, and also like the different kinds of troops, and expanded a bunch about Nurgle stuff. But the story that's contained within it is basically there is a Chaos Warband of Nurgle that has come down from the north and is now in the Northern Empire. And although it's a terrifying warband, they're not like massive. Like, it's good size, but it's not colossal. And the warband is relying more on stealth than it is, like, it only fights when it has to. And they're trying to sneak through the Empire because they're heading for the Southlands. And their goal is they're heading for the Southlands to track down Lord Skrolk, and to kill him. And one of the things the book talks about is that although they're heading to the Southlands to where the headquarters of Clan Pestilence is to find Skrolk, they don't know that Skrolk is already gone. Skrolk has left the Southlands for Lustria for some important mission for Clan Pestilence to basically help re-establish Clan Pestilence foothold in the city of Quetzal, which is the very first city where the Skaven manifested. That's like their original place. That, and then the city of Chakwa, where the city of gold, which they corrupted heavily. But Quetzal is like a very important city to the Skaven because it is the origin place of Clan Pestilence. And they've been pushed out of it a number of times, but always kind of come crawling back. And this is actually building up to a really important moment in the story where in the modern lore, so Cubicle 7 is, I think, like 10-ish years set before the quote-unquote modern 8th edition setting. So basically Cubicle 7 is like setting up for 8th edition, which is super duper fun. And it's allowing us to see about how a lot of things were building up to happening as opposed to just happening. Which I love about it. So that's how we're getting stuff like you can meet Wulfric through the Sea of Claws book, but he's not Wulfric the Wanderer yet. He's just Wulfric. He has not been cursed with the gift of tongues yet, and he's not been cursed to like search the world eternally in search of new challengers. He's not the eternal challenger. He's simply Wulfric, and is a very, very powerful Norscan warlord. He hasn't even killed King Torgald yet, which leads to him boasting to such an extent that the Chaos Gods curse him. But this is that Lord Skrolk actually goes to Lustria to help reestablish Clan Pestilence foothold. And there is a story in the Lizardman 8th edition army book about how Clan Pestilence does actually manage to get their claws back into the city of Quetzal and the surrounding jungles. But later on, before the end times, they're defeated again. And they're actually defeated by Teto Echo. So Teto Echo is the Skink Priest legendary lord type character. He is a really, really badass, extremely old by Skink standards, which means he's a little over 100. And Skink Priest that rides around on a palanquin just like a Slan does. And he's like one of the best Lore of Heavens casters in the game. He's like one of the best. And he specializes in throwing meteors at people. And so he has this really big epic battle with the Skaven. That's a fantastic read. He has this very epic confrontation with them. And at the end of the battle, Teto Echo basically calls down a giant comet that slams into the city of Quetzal and annihilates it. So like the comet not only flattens the surface city, but it penetrates and slams into the undercity of the Skaven beneath it and just obliterates it. So that hasn't happened yet in this timeline. In the Cubicle 7 timeline, we're still like a good 5+ years away from that. So we're still in the Skaven building up to this confrontation with Teto Echo, which is just super badass. All right, so that's the end of the article. I'm very, very excited about this. I cannot wait for this book. Honestly, this might be this might be the thing that really gets me to start doing like reviews of these books here on the channel. I don't, would y'all like that? I don't know if y'all would enjoy watching those. Like maybe like a live stream, where like we could kind of do both. We could do a live stream where I go over the book live, and we kind of talk about all the different things that appear in it. And then I could do a video later that's kind of like a review. Like I've read every single book they've put out. I haven't read every single PDF, but I'm close to reading every single PDF. There's just a lot of them because they release like little adventures that have like little fun bonus things in it on a very regular basis. But I've read pretty much every book, and I have yet to read one that I have not absolutely fallen in love with. So I don't know if y'all would be interested in hearing or seeing any of that. If you would, please let me know. I would be more than happy to look into doing that. But in any event, thank you all so much for watching. I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. But very exciting times coming for anyone that's a Lizardman fan or just Lustria fan or roleplay fan or whatever. And I can't wait. Thank y'all.